All right, this week's video is going to be just a little bit longer, but I promise this is going to be so helpful because we're going to talk about how I yearly lesson plan for my special education classroom. So again, there's so much information here that I hope you find it helpful. So maybe your district has given you a curriculum to follow. Maybe they haven't. But maybe they haven't really told you what skills to teach or in what order. So this doesn't really help you when you have to figure out a plan for yearly lesson planning. So we get that. So let us all be honest and say that our undergraduate degrees never really truly taught us how to do curriculum and lesson planning, especially for students with maybe 3 to 9 different grade levels or for multiple subject areas. No. So finally, let's all clear the air and say that one curriculum does not serve all the learners in our classroom. So you're here because maybe you have multiple grade levels to teach and multiple subject areas to tackle in one day that you have to plan for. So lesson planning sounds like such a daunting task. We all know this. So here are a few things to consider before you begin curriculum planning and curriculum mapping. Your student academic levels. Take a look at your students' IEPs and data collection that you have. Maybe there's parent interviews, previous teacher interviews, and state assessments to determine where your students are at academically. State or district standards are super important. Once you have your students' current academic levels, maybe not grade level, but academic levels, you should look at your state standards for your grade level. If you have modified standards, such as the DLM Essential Elements, the bridge to understand these standards is much simpler. So check with your special education director to see if maybe you should be following the grade level standards or the academic level. I've always been told to follow the grade level, but maybe you want academic level. So this comes into play when you're writing goals and targeting content for your classroom. So for example, a student is in 8th grade level, but is working on kindergarten skills, academic level. You want to print out or have a copy available to jot down any common themes or skills. For example, if the main idea and key ideas keeps being stated in the standards, make sure that you have a unit or make time for that in your plan. Typically, you can find 10 to 20 skills to hone in on when lesson planning. So use the curriculum for lesson planning. And once you have written down at least 10 skills to work on, you must consider the curriculum available to you. Check with your curriculum specialist or an instructional coach to see what options you have available if you do not know. So by having your student ability levels and the state standards written down, you should have a clear idea maybe of what your students can do and where they need to go. Take a look at each curriculum, or in reality, the only curriculum that you have that may be currently available. Look to see which skills are listed in the plan, and there should be a teacher guide to show you maybe the units or the lesson plans if you have a box curriculum. Makes sense. We need a curriculum when lesson planning and mapping, of course. So what do I do if I don't have a curriculum, Heather? That's really the reality. Other teachers in the district with similar classes to you, or maybe see what they use. Maybe there's a coordinator or a mentor to see other options. Check the budget to see if you have any spending money for your classroom. But also you can use supplemental materials like Teachers Pay Teachers or websites to create your own. Ultimately, you need to have a curriculum to follow, so make sure to keep making that noise until you get one or two. It's essential for lesson planning. IXL is a great digital resource for all subject areas that meet a wide range of skills and abilities, so I do recommend IXL. Let's talk a little bit more about supplemental materials. I have used many box curriculum in my years of teaching, and let's just say they aren't all as comprehensive as they should be. We need supplemental materials as well while we are lesson planning. It is true that teachers will need to get supplemental materials in order to get all of the skills that they need for their students. I had been using a math curriculum that focused heavily on counting and numbers, but did not cover any geometry skills, such as shapes or patterns. again, it's a missing skill. So I chose to purchase a few items off of Teachers Pay Teachers when I was in the classroom in order to make a unit that met my students' needs. They needed to know about these things. So if you're using your own money to make sure the product is something that you will actually use. Don't just buy things to buy things. You can also ask the store a question about a resource. So 9 times out of 10, I'm sure the seller will let you see a preview or a page of the product before actually purchasing it on Teachers Pay Teachers to determine if it's right for your students. Let's be honest. You can also make things out of materials that you have. Maybe you can cut out shapes out of paper and have your students glue them into a picture while identifying them. The dollar store will be your best friend for the first couple years of teaching as well. Let's be honest. I've gotten tons of things there so that you can build up your library of activities and resources. Also, garage sales, Goodwill, and maybe Facebook Marketplace are also great ways to get the materials that you need to find maybe educational toys, games, and activities to support IEP goals. So finally, let's consider the IEP goals from the student. So we've gotten all of these things out of the way. You may have your student working on multiplication, but you don't plan to do a unit on multiplication until February. Consider what you can do weekly to make sure that you are tracking that student's IEP goal. If possible, try to do some mini lessons to continuously target those IEP goals. All right, also we need to consider the time. Before you start putting units together and figuring out which month to teach which topic and which skill, you need to consider how much time you want to take on each skill. For example, for math, I like to teach measurement and fractions in November so that my students can help with cooking and baking during the holiday season. I also do budgeting in December so that my students can practice using money and buying items for, again, the holidays. We do coin and dollar identification and simple money exchanges in the months leading up, obviously, to it. So that really does help build on those skills. So take a look at your school calendar, plan breaks, vacations, teacher work days, any other professional development days, and really kind of just write down and on a note or on a calendar so you remember. So I typically spend about 2 to 3 weeks on a topic, maybe 4, and I rotate those skills through twice a year so that it kind of rotates and spirals. We can all agree that it's a difficult and time-consuming task to do. It's most likely why it never gets done. So what other teacher that we know teaches 5 to probably 8 subjects in a school day other than special education teachers? So if you want part 2 of this information, make sure to come back. There will be a part 2 with more information. Thank you for watching today's video. If you're new here, make sure to click that like and subscribe button. It would mean so much to me. Click the bell to get notifications for when new videos get released or I go live. As always, leave a comment if you have any questions.